Welcome, everybody. We're going to give it one more minute and then we will go ahead and get started. But thank you so much for hopping on. And we will get started at around 1:01 to just let people continue to file on.
Well, welcome everyone. We're going to get started right at the top of the hour. Thank you to everyone for joining us. Just a few reminders, this is being recorded and will be sent to you after our call. I know that our time together is short, but we're so excited to engage with you all and have some back and forth conversation. Don't hesitate to come on camera, use the chat, or come off mute when appropriate. But, we might as well let's go ahead and get started.
Awesome. Well, welcome on again, everybody. My name is Brendan Johnson. I'm a customer success manager with GiveSmart. I'm with my colleagues, Ala and Miriam, who are also customer success managers with GiveSmart. Go figure. If you're on this call, we are your support people. Your kind of go-to person at pretty much everybody's middleman with GiveSmart. We again appreciate you all jumping on today. We're going to be kind of talking through some best practices for the civil and social customers that we do have. Kind of reviewing what we've done so far in 2024, trends that worked in 2023, as well as diving into future trends for the upcoming 2 quarters of the rest of this year.
All right, welcome everyone, and thank you so much for spending some time with us today. First, let's take a look at our agenda. We'll start by diving into a review of 2024, followed by a quick look at the industry to see where Civic and Social stands in the market. Next, we'll open the floor for some discussion just to hear your thoughts and insights. This will then lead us into the analysis of seasonal trends. Then we'll go ahead and explore some opportunities and how to capitalize on them. And lastly, we'll wrap up with an open Q&A and further discussion. This will be a great chance for you guys to ask questions and share ideas. And that pretty much covers our agenda for today. Now, to kick things off and give us a review of 2024, I'll hand it over to Ala.
Thank you, Miriam. So this is a really exciting slide for us to start with as an industry, working with being nonprofits, working with donors. And this is just a glance on some highlights from 2024 so far. So, take some time to look through this data that we have. Feel free to come off your mute or pop in the chat to see if there's anything that sticks out to you or maybe your organization contributed to. Some exciting things that I see is that $8 million of donations were paid online via Apple Pay, Google Pay, PayPal, and Venmo, which is telling me that a lot of people are looking for more convenient options to donate, and a lot of people are using their phones. What I also wanted to point out is that so far we've seen 164,000 reoccurring donations. So that's not the number. Just looking at the stats that we have here, if it doesn't have a percentage or a dollar sign, we know it's a unit. So we've seen a lot of reoccurring donations come in and contribute to overall fundraising. Like Brendan, Miriam, what have you seen so far in 2024?
Yeah, one big thing I've seen, and one of the hexagons here, the 412K raffle tickets sold in April. That's a ton of raffle tickets for 1 month to be sold. Obviously, April's a big fundraising month, so any of those galas or big grand scale events featuring those clearly took advantage of that. And I think raffles are a really, really great use case for fundraising. Number one being it's a low entry point. Most times raffle tickets are much cheaper than any kind of auction items that are out there. And you can usually get as good quality item as an auction item. So instead of having to spend, $500, $600, $700 on an item you may like, it's a $50 raffle ticket to get in. Most everybody can stomach that lower cost. So if you offer something like that, it kind of opens up your entire audience to that fundraising. I'll kind of touch on some examples in some future slides here, but that's one thing that I've kind of seen in the early part of 2024 that's been working really, really well for customers.
So you would say that it's kind of like our job and the organization's job to give donors different avenues of participation.
Absolutely. I always say to customers, all dollars are good dollars. It doesn't matter where they're coming from or who they're coming from. It's a good thing to have that. And again, I think the biggest thing is there's no barrier for entry for the most part. Again, raffle tickets are usually more affordable. There's not a set number of items, or sorry, a set number of limit that they can sell usually. So it just kind of it's an open opportunity for everyone to participate, which is again kind of the goal of any of these fundraisers.
And not to give any spoilers, but I know you have a great tip coming up. So if you're on now, I would definitely recommend staying on to hear Brendan's idea for like a great entry, like donation strategy.
Absolutely. A few more slides. Awesome. So now that we kind of took a look at 2024, we're going to kind of, I don't want to say cross compare, but evaluate 2023 in comparison to what we've seen so far in 2024. Obviously, we're going to highlight today the civic and social category here. This is a breakdown of kind of what type of fundraising was going on, how much fundraising were they doing in each quarter. Obviously, it's very easy to see that a large chunk of the fundraising did happen in the second half of the year. The way we kind of have broken this down and looked at this is for this specific industry, the civic and social industry, we see it as quarter one is kind of that prep time period for usually what is the one big signature event of the year that takes place in quarter two, that usually being in April or May. That is usually the big gala event. A lot of our customers in this industry like to have that one big event early on in the year so they can budget out for the rest of the year to make sure that they hit their target fundraising goals. And that's kind of why you see that second half of the year be a little bit bigger. Run that one big event in that first half of the year, and then as you go into the second half of the year, spend Q3 and Q4 hammering home a lot more, but maybe smaller events. A lot of these are usually ticketed events or things of that nature. I know we've got a slide coming up here that'll kind of break down the different revenue streams. But again, what we see a lot of times is Q3 is kind of the prep/launch point for a lot of that, where Q4 sees a lot of that revenue come in. Usually that Q3 revenue does fall into that, again, ticketing and prep for the big gala that's upcoming, maybe in the fall, or the other events you have upcoming in the fall. And then Q4 being a little bit more of that holiday giving, so to speak. Giving Tuesday, holiday season, end of year giving, tied a little bit more to the, reason for the season type thinking. But it's just kind of an interesting breakdown. For our customers that are on today, does that kind of fit with what you've seen? Just kind of pop a yes or no in the chat. If there's things that you see that are very, very different with how your organization is run, we'd love to hear that as well. But just kind of like to share some trends as kind of how your particular industry is flowing in fundraising.
All right, so let's pause for a moment here. Just wondering if what we covered so far aligns with what you're seeing in your organizations, if there's anything you have planned for Q3 that you're excited about, or if maybe you already tried something that worked well and would like to continue doing. Anyone would like to share with the group? Like Brendan said, you could use the chat. And then just curious here, Brendan and Ala, what have you guys seen our clients do to prep for Q3?
Well, I definitely see a lot of my clients selling their tickets and sponsorships in Q2 in preparation for their Q3 event. So just making sure that you start that relatively early, securing your donors and, just all the different things you need for your event. So I'll see a lot of that, they kind of start probably just before Q2, really gear up throughout this quarter. And then Q3 is, they're kind of probably focusing on their auction and just other fundraising elements. Those are the trends I see. I do see a lot of my clients do a May gala. Like May is a really busy time for my clients, but that's not always, the standard across the board. But they typically will start their sales 5 to 6 months before their actual event.
Yeah, and I'll kind of second that as well. A very similar type thing for the customers in my book as well, where a lot of late April, May type events that are, again, that bigger, grander scale event, kind of slow down into June and then spend the next 2 to 3 months really ramping back up with ticket sales and sponsorships. And one thing I always like to call out here too is that is, and I'd be remiss if I didn't do the shameless sales pitch, but that is the best time to be purchasing any kind of support or services from GiveSmart. If you're going to be in need of on-site support, remote staffing support, if you're going to need any kind of extra training, maybe you have some volunteers who need to go through some day of event prep training, maybe you have new event staff behind the scenes who have never used GiveSmart before and need some kind of admin training. The time to take care of that kind of stuff is those few months in advance, that June, that July time period, so that as that event rolls around, you and your staff are incredibly prepared for that big fundraising event.
Okay. Quick question here, rolling in. If there's anything like during a big event or even a smaller size event that maybe might be that kind of like big return or like, that variable return, but easy to do that maybe, you guys have seen your clients test out and how that went.
Yeah, one thing I've seen for kind of a big return, and Alla hinted at this a little bit, 50/50 raffles have been a big and easy thing to do. It takes no legwork. There's no real prize that you have to go out, and someone in your community doesn't have to donate a brand new truck or exclusive sports tickets or anything like that. You put it up online, it's a 50/50 raffle. As much as the proceeds you bring in, they get 50% of that. There's really no work that goes into it. You price it, like I mentioned on the raffles earlier, you price it at a point that's not prohibited to your entire audience. So even if it's a $20 raffle ticket, if you're going to have 200 guests at the event, I can guarantee you're going to sell at least 200 raffle tickets if they're priced that way. That alone brings in almost $4,000. Half of that $2,000 that covers, one of your vendors that you used or little things like that. It's just another way to kind of tap in for a very, very low effort, high ROI. That's one thing that I've seen used really, really well in the last few months with GiveSmart customers.
And Brendan, I will say, ever since you brought up encouraging our clients to do 50/50 raffles, I feel like I've seen them everywhere at every sporting event I go to that has a foundation. They will do a 50/50 raffle every time there's a game. Because I went back and I looked up to see if this was like just at the game I went to, but it was at every single game that they had, they've done a 50/50 raffle.
Yeah, and especially in today's world where everything is so digital and you just pull out your phone and make a purchase, people are very, very used to that kind of stuff. So again, just kind of having some, for lack of a better term, low-hanging fruit like that for them to invest in, it's a no-brainer.
And people get excited. I mean, it's such a fun activity. Might as well incorporate it into an event or outside of events as well.
Great. So now, earlier in this call, you all saw our industry overall trends, but now we're going to dive specifically into the civic and social industry. As you know, you all are part of our GiveSmart community, and that's specifically for clients only. And then we even hammer down further for it to be geared towards organizations in your industry specific to civic and social. So as Brendan mentioned, our top quarter that we see is Q3, where we see an average of almost 200,000 raised among 3 campaigns per organization. So we definitely see a lot of our clients, grinding in Q3. If you take a look at this chart, the dark teal represents Q3, specifically showing event donations at a high, ticketing, and a silent auction spike. So right now we're in Q2, which means we know that Q3 is going to be really busy for our clients. In Q4, we do see an increase in donation campaigns. So that's likely more year-end, year-round fundraising. That's when we'll see a lot of our clients put together like a Giving Tuesday campaign, a year-round campaign, and just kind of finalizing their fundraising for the year. When you have your big signature event, obviously it brings in a chunk of revenue, but doing these campaigns all throughout the year and specifically for Giving Tuesday helps you bridge any gap that you may have or blow your goal out of the water. I know a lot of my clients have been using the toolkits that we have in our help center. So I think if you just search, we'll put it in the chat, we'll share it with you, but it is accessible now. So if you want to take a look at our toolkit for year-round fundraising or prepping for Giving Tuesday, you should be able to access that now. And I know, we'll do some webinars around Giving Tuesday later in the year as well.
Now kind of looking at some seasonal trends based on what we just saw in that last slide here. Kind of your three big revenue drivers of tickets, auctions, and raffles. Obviously, we've touched on raffles a bunch already so far, but kind of making sure that, again, ticketing is one of the first things you should always be setting up within GiveSmart. It's a huge revenue driver. If I'm not mistaken, I think year over year, it's one of our biggest revenue categories within GiveSmart. So that's where you're going to see a huge chunk of your revenue. And what's great about that is that's pre-event revenue. So before you even step foot into the gala hall or onto your event site, you've got a bankable income behind you supporting you. So that's a really huge component to incorporate. Make sure that your ticketing and sponsorships are perfectly set up from the jump. That way, when you launch your site, everything is smooth sailing from there. And again, that's a huge revenue driver. And then obviously auctions. That's one of the biggest components of working with GiveSmart and one of the things that we do best here at GiveSmart. A lot of folks love the excitement of an auction, love the ability to buy something unique and cool. So really making sure that you're investing time, energy, and effort to make sure that auction is as best as possible, whether that be you offering as many offerings as possible or shrinking down those offerings and really making the smaller number of offerings much higher quality. Kind of going off of that, Ala and Miriam, is there anything you've seen recently from your customers in terms of trends with either ticketing or auctions that have really helped drive revenue?
So you could definitely boost revenue during events by encouraging supporters to make donations, obviously, especially for those who don't bid or win auction items, right? They can still participate by donating. So typically after a video or a speaker who gives a testimonial, you can send out a pre-scheduled text message. And that's what I've seen my clients do. So the text message would prompt donors to give on their phone. And we do prefer the electronic route because donations are immediately entered and the display can be used to show those amounts in real time. What I've also seen my clients do is extending that momentum post-event. I've really seen organizations continue raising funds up to a week after their event had ended. Same thing, they would send out a thank you text within 24 hours with a link to the page. That way donors have the opportunity to see where the organization landed and help more if needed. For example, if you didn't reach your goal, the text message can say something like, thank you so much for your support. We're so close. Please help us reach our goal. And don't hesitate to reach the page link with friends and family. It really works.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with all of that. I think also having transparency on your fundraising goal and how far or close you are to it. I think when you have the power of having everyone in the room, it creates a great goal for the evening. Like either we're all trying really hard to get to it or we're hitting it together and just focusing on that impact. But Miriam, I really like what you said about like going outside the room and thinking like post event, like what are we doing with, what happened? So I do find a lot of my clients are running more thoughtful reports about who was in the room and kind of their profile and relationship to the organization. So whether they're giving someone a call after to welcome them to the organization, or it was maybe their first time attending or first time giving, or they're, even calling supporters that have been there every year and recognizing that. So I think their outreach is definitely getting more dynamic and focused.
Yeah, I think those are really, really great points. Both of you brought up there, and obviously go well with the kind of communication plan and social media topics that we have here that haven't touched on yet. I think the big takeaway here is have a plan and stick to that plan. I think that's the number one thing. Every customer is different. Every customer's clientele is different. We could tell you 50 different ways to communicate with your customers, and it might not fit for you because your customers are unique to you. So I think what's important to remember is as we do roll into that Q3, where again, that is the largest fundraising quarter for customers in this industry, getting that established communication plan, whether it be all through internal channels, whether it be all through social media channels, whether it be old school mailers, whatever works for your audience, establishing a very dead set plan and really, really sticking to it. And when we say a communication plan, we don't mean just exclusively pre-event or just exclusively post-event. It is from the day you launch your site to the day that you are absolutely shutting everything down and in between. So hey, everything's launching, it's out there and available communications, to the auction is open and available communications, event communications during the event, like Miriam touched on, where we're sending out text to prompt donors to donate. And then post-event communications. Hey, we were just 8,000 short of our goal. We'd love to hit that goal. Who can contribute still post-event? Things like that. Making sure that those are in place also makes it really easy for you to implement them. So instead of having to strategize for a week on how to best do it and things like that, your event ends on Saturday night, you get together Monday, first thing at work, review everything, and by Tuesday morning, you're launching out that post-event communication. That timeliness is huge for your donors because they see that as you recognizing their value. Again, a million different ways to do it, but just make sure that you do establish some kind of plan and really stick to that specific plan. And again, shameless little pitch here. If you are buying any services from us, our team can absolutely help you establish what that plan is. We have plenty of templates and guides, and we have some amazing advisors who have been doing this for years and have some really great advice on how we should map this out, the timing of when we should send it, how we should send it, what channels it should go out through. So if any of that is of interest, please follow up with one of us three, your CSMs, and we'll make sure we'll send over some of that info.
I love that. And I'm pausing here just for a second because there was a question that came in about maximizing fundraising during events. And I think you guys tapped into a lot of those tips and tricks and ideas, but was there anything else that, maybe that we can help, suggest or anything like that about maximizing your fundraising during an event?
If you're looking to maximize, like, for example, say how much you raise in donations during your event, I would say I've seen a direct correlation between a soft ask and a direct ask to like getting closer to your goal and seeing like maximizing that potential. So I think once you I think you should always ask at every event for a gift. I don't think it's a secret that a lot of our organizations, they're run through donations. Like that's what they need to thrive. And so what I've noticed is that the more direct your ask is, the more of an ROI you'll see. So whether that's having a speaker just before the ask or an impactful video, and then having someone lead through the donation moment, intentionally going through levels, even using a display with a goal in mind, so that as donations are being submitted electronically on everyone's phones, or through a volunteer who's assisting, it's updating in real time. That's when I see the most impact at an event.
All right, for Q4 seasonal trends, obviously we see an uptick in donation campaigns with Giving Tuesday and end of year campaigns coming up. So setting up those opportunities ahead of time will allow your supporters to be able to contribute no matter where they're at. And that's very important, to meet your donors where they're at, especially for those that are unable to participate in person. You could still engage with them with online giving to expand your reach. One of the tools that I love, very underrated in my opinion, is texting. Text messages have an open rate of 98%, so it's really your best bet to engage with your donors during and also outside of fundraising season. One of our best practices here at GiveSmart, and what we actually recommend, is reaching out 2 to 3 times before making an ask. So you don't have to wait for fundraising season to do that. Make sure that you keep that communication going. You can send out text messages to promote your campaigns, share links, send thank you messages, sending something like, thank you so much for your support. We couldn't have done it without you. Here's the link to our page in case you weren't able to make it to the event. Can go a long way in securing future support. GiveSmart makes it easy to customize your pages and donation forms to make it really specific to your event and theme. For example, you could add your mission or testimonials on your landing page. That way, everyone knows a little bit more about the work that you do, and it automatically compels more support. Also, some of the easy revenue drivers that you could add to your donation forms and pages are recurring donations. Recurring donors tend to give twice as much than one-time contributors. Incorporating crowdfunding or peer-to-peer fundraising is also a great way to have supporters fundraise on your behalf. So you could, put maybe like an optional ask where you're asking those supporters to join your crowdfunding activity. And one other way you can maximize your fundraising is tapping into matching gifts, which we'll dive more into shortly. Hala?
So this is an example of an organization who did a really fantastic job using multi-elements from the GiveSmart suite. So this is the Catch a Dream Foundation. I know my clients love to see examples. They love to see someone who is using the platform well. So I'm really happy we were able to share this. So just even if you just go to the Catch a Dream Foundation website, it will take you less than 2 seconds to find their donate button and get to one of these pages, which I think is a great takeaway. Is less clicks, more likely that someone is able to finish the donation that they've started. So I loved seeing that on their page. And then if you also go further into their page, they have a text to donate as well. I love our text to donate because it works in a really smart way. So if you text in to start a donation, but don't finish it, it'll actually send up to 2, and Miriam, you might be able to fact check me on this, like X amount of text messages reminding you that you started a donation, but didn't finish it. And if I could tell you how many times I do that, it's natural, but I appreciate that those reminders are automated and come through pretty quickly. But they just basically combined GiveSmart Fundraise to create a landing page for their fundraiser. And then they had like dynamic links to different forms, auctions, and raffles. So it was really well linked throughout and really easy to access. So this was a great example that we were able to pull.
And then kind of building off of that Catch a Dream Foundation, we wanted to just kind of touch on some passive and automated fundraising for today. I know a lot of what we focused on was very event centric, kind of prepping for that big Q3 where you're selling tickets and sponsorships and auctions and all that kind of stuff that, for lack of a better term, goes into the big shebang that you have upcoming. But a really, really great way to stay locked in year round with your donors are these passive and automated fundraising methods. It just kind of gives you a great way to implement and stay connected with your audience so that when you do have your big happenings throughout the year, they're more in tune with your organization and more likely to participate in those bigger happenings. A few things that we see work really, really well are a few things that Alla touched on that last organization did, but donate buttons on your website. Sounds incredibly simple, but GiveSmart Fundraise can facilitate that very, very, very easily. It's something you build that button once it's built, it's done. There's no maintenance, there's no upkeep, there's no updating information or anything like that. You build out a donation form that's generic to your organization, link it through that button, whether it's embedded on your website or directly linked to GiveSmart. Click once, boom, the form's there for them to donate, making it really, really easy for you to gather those donations in a very passive way. Another way to do that is implementing the recurring giving. What's nice is you can just activate that on the exact same form. So it doesn't have to be something that you do differently. It doesn't have to be something that you really push. But if it's out there and available, there's a good chance they're going to take advantage of it. And recurring giving is really the easiest. I mean, passive donations, that is the definition of recurring giving. There's no need for you to chase anybody around. Their credit card's linked to their account. Their credit card gets charged. Your organization gets paid. Very, very easy and straightforward. Another thing you can do all within the same donation form that's very passive. Well, again, once it's set up, you're good to go. Enable gift matching. We have a phenomenal gift matching system with Double the Donation. It's a partnership that we have through them. And it just makes it really, really easy for you to do those corporate match gifts. Again, the big thing here is the ease of use. Build out a donation form. That donation form includes recurring giving and matching gifts. Plant that on your website, whether it's through a linked donation button or an embedded form. You put your hands up and you walk away. There is nothing else you have to do. You're good to start fundraising, and you can just keep that active at all times. I know we touched on a few of the things, but the text reminders are a great aspect of that. Kind of passively reminding your guests, hey, you made this donation, make sure you follow through with it. But just kind of coming up with ways to engage your audience without you having to put a lot of legwork or effort into it. It kind of goes back to what we talked about with that 50-50 raffle. Take the low-hanging fruit, take the easy dollars. The big dollars are always going to be tough to chase around for those big events, but getting that 100, getting that 50, getting that 50, getting the 20, the 100, that adds up really, really fast. And next thing you know, you've raised several $1,000s and you really didn't put a lot of effort into it. So just kind of always be thinking of ways to passively engage with your audience so that when you do have very active engagements, not only have you bolstered your dollar line, but you've bolstered your community action so that customers are really in tune with your organization and your mission.
Yeah, I love that. I love that so much. And I think these have been amazing kind of tips and pinpointing areas that you can maximize and have kind of like that low lift and high return areas. I do want to be cognizant of time here because I know we're a couple minutes over the 30 mark here. So I will just skip straight to these questions. We just had a couple of stragglers come in. So we can just skip right on over to these, but we kind of tapped on some of the opportunities that are available to tap into as well. But just kind of to help round us out, so again that we can be cognizant of everybody's time and get them back going into your busy days. But along those lines of what you were just touching on here is maximizing your fundraising efforts. So outside of the event season, someone asked how to maximize fundraising. Kind of, in general, if there are any kind of last minute tips there, and then we can wrap up. And if there's any other last minute questions, feel free to submit.
Well, I definitely think, yeah, go
ahead, Ella. Go ahead.
We were probably thinking the same thing, but maximizing like group giving, like basically allowing people to set up like a peer-to-peer and then having them set up their own peer-to-peer as well. I think that's a really great way to engage bigger groups of people outside your community. I think that's a great way to do it. I've also seen a lot of my clients use Fundraise for their marathon giving. So a lot of the times when you're part of a marathon, you have like a threshold that you either need to pay as a donation to an organization or fundraise on their behalf. So I've seen a lot of clients like utilize Fundraise to help some of their participants raise their marathon kind of goal.
Yeah, totally, Ala. Crowdfunding for sure. I've also seen clients include voting, where the number of donors act as votes to determine a winner, like we see in events such as Dancing with the Stars or Best Chef. It typically creates a lot of momentum and excitement, and it's such a fun activity. So that's another way to raise money outside of fundraising season for sure, in addition to crowdfunding and raffles that Brandon covered earlier.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned voting.
Yeah, I'll kind of highlight voting as well. One thing that, and I think it does fit more into that event season time period, but having pre-event fundraising for your events. Obviously, selling tickets is pre-event fundraising, selling sponsorships is pre-event fundraising, but things that are more active and engaging. Again, we've touched on raffle several times, but having that open and available pre-event is always a great way to kind of bring in pre-event revenue. But the voting items is another way. I've seen a ton of customers use voting items for, you know, in a big gala setting, usually you've got a little bit of a dance floor or cocktails going around. A lot of times customers will use voting for song of the night. You vote on 5 or 6 songs that you want to hear played at the premier dancing moment of the night, or cocktail of the night. You vote on 3 or 4 different cocktails that are going to be the quote unquote featured cocktail of the evening or featured snack of the evening. It's a way of getting your audience to engage in your event before that event even takes place. And it also raises dollars for you. So you're kind of checking all the boxes in terms of, I'm raising revenue for my organization. My audience is fully engaged in this event that's upcoming, so that when the event does come up around, they're even more excited for it and more likely to spend when they're there.
I love that. I love that so much. And this actually kind of ties in with a question also that was asked, just like the hesitation. They asked, do you see like kind of like a problem or a hesitation kind of continuing to communicate with, you know, event attendees throughout the year and like post-event season? I feel like, you know, as folks in nonprofit or have had experience in nonprofit, you almost worry about that donor fatigue, right? Like, they just came to our event. Can I make another ask of them, or like, you know, engage with them in that way? Any tips or tricks around that, or thoughts or feelings?
I can understand a personal hesitation, that you as the organizer, you're constantly sending out the communication. So you're like, when is it too much? But I think the truth is that you never know when your engagement is going to be impactful to a donor or to a potential donor. And so kind of taking out the personal bias that someone has and just choosing to engage anyway and having that constant communication, I think is important. I think, in Casey, me and you have talked about this and have a number for it. It takes like 5 to 7, sometimes even 10 engagements for one donor to interact with you one time.
Yep.
So yeah, I just think my word of advice for that is like, take out the personal bias that you have as the person sending it, and letting the donor decide.
Absolutely. Absolutely. They will tell you one way or the other, and you want that answer regardless. So it's always nice to know. Well, this has been so great. I know we took up some extra time here, but thank you so much for hopping on, and thank you to the 3 of you for all of your amazing firsthand experience, tips, tricks. I felt like, you know, I was receiving some one-on-one advice here, and getting a little sneak peek of what it's like to be able to work with you day in and day out. So thank you so much. And we really appreciate everybody's time, and we will talk soon. I hope everybody has a great rest of the day. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye, guys. Thank
Bye.
you.